Okay, I want you to picture this. It's 1930, right at the start of the Great Depression. The world is exhausted, money is incredibly tight, and there's this guy, Jules Rimet, the president of FIFA. He's standing on a ship crossing this freezing gray ocean on a 2-week journey all the way to Uruguay. Welcome to The Explainer. We're jumping right into a really amazing cinematic journey today. We're going to look at how a simple, almost startlingly basic concept totally evolved into a global phenomenon. We're talking about a game that started on muddy 19th century fields and somehow transformed into this massive event that literally pauses the entire planet. As we go through this, we're going to see how history, hope, and human connection all just kind of collided to create something truly magical. Let's get into it. Okay, I want you to picture this. It's 1930, right at the start of the Great Depression. The world is exhausted, money is incredibly tight, and there's this guy, Jules Rimet, the president of FIFA. He's standing on a ship crossing this freezing gray ocean on a 2-week journey all the way to Uruguay. And inside his bag, a little golden trophy that weighs less than 4 kilograms. Most people at the time thought he was completely out of his mind to be doing this. So why on earth is he smiling? Well, he's smiling because of what we now call Rimet's dream. The crazy thing here is that Rimet had absolutely zero proof this was going to work. He had spent months begging nations to come, writing letters, making phone calls, but he just had this rock-solid, unwavering belief that this little inanimate object and the game it stood for could actually act as a universal language. He honestly believed that if nations just met out on a pitch, they'd start to understand each other a little bit better. It was a quiet idea, but one he thought could literally bring the world together. Now, to really grasp how wild this dream was, we've got to rewind even further, back to a freezing Tuesday afternoon in Scotland in 1872. Just 4,000 people standing around a muddy field in Glasgow to watch England play Scotland. And guess what? Nobody scored. It was a 90-minute 0-0 draw. Honestly, by modern standards, totally forgettable. But it was actually the first official international match in history. 2 nations deciding, hey, we're going to settle something, not with armies, but with 11 players and a ball. And from that tiny, freezing seed, we finally get to the first World Cup in 1930. But getting it off the ground was a total nightmare. Europe basically didn't want to go. The trip was just way too long. In the end, only 13 nations agreed to play. And just 4 European teams actually made that brutal 2-week boat trip. It was such a different time. King Carol II of Romania literally sat down and personally picked his nation's squad himself. Can you imagine that today? It was also here that a 23-year-old French guy named Lucien Laurent scored the first goal ever in the tournament. Almost nobody remembers it today, but Uruguay ended up winning, and Rimet's crazy idea officially took its first real breath. So, we go from a few thousand freezing fans in Scotland to this. Fast forward just 20 years, and look at this explosive scale. 200,000 roaring fans packed into the Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro for the 1950 final. Brazil was hosting, they were the heavy favorites, and that massive buzzing crowd of 200,000 people was absolutely certain they were going to win. People were literally celebrating in the streets before the game was even over. But here is the absolutely crucial lesson of this explainer, and really of the tournament itself. The small can beat the large. Nothing is ever guaranteed. Uruguay completely shocked the world, scoring twice to win 2-1, and they silenced 200,000 people in a single second. That silence echoed across the whole country in what's still known as the Maracanazo, the Great Maracanazo Shock. The guy who scored that winning goal for Uruguay actually had the best quote about it. He said, "Only 3 people have ever silenced the Maracanã: Frank Sinatra, the Pope, and me." Just incredible. So, out of that massive heartbreak, we see the rise of these completely unlikely heroes who became absolute global icons. Take Pelé in 1958. The kid was just 17 years old. He grew up so poor he literally practiced with a grapefruit stuffed inside a sock. Yet he becomes the youngest player to score in a final and just collapses in tears when they win. Then skip to 1962. Pelé gets injured. Who steps up? Garrincha. They called him the little bird. Also grew up in deep poverty. But get this, doctors said his legs were deformed, curving in opposite directions, and he'd never even run properly. Are you kidding me? He became this unstoppable, magical dribbler who basically put Brazil on his back and carried them to a second victory. They completely defied the odds. And by 1970, down in the intense, dry heat of Mexico, all of that incredible Brazilian momentum evolved into a pure philosophy. Jogo Bonito, the beautiful game. Pelé was back, playing alongside absolute legends like Tostão, Rivellino, and Carlos Alberto. Watching them was like watching 11 players moving with one single mind. Carlos Alberto capped it off by scoring what most people still consider the greatest team goal in history during their 4-1 final win over Italy. That win meant Brazil got to keep the Jules Rimet trophy forever. It was just pure, unfiltered joy out on the pitch. Surviving war and theft, the darkest years. Because, as with any great historical journey, not every chapter is beautiful. Let's look at how this fragile idea survived when things got really dark. During the 1940s, the tournament just stopped. No games in 42, none in 46. Stadiums were turned into military bases, and the players literally became soldiers. And that iconic golden trophy, it was in huge danger. So check out what FIFA Vice President Ottorino Barassi did. While Rome was occupied, he quietly swiped the trophy, wrapped it up in some old cloth, stuck it inside a basic shoebox, and hid it right under his bed. Just think about the sheer anxiety of that. Checking a shoebox under your bed every single night for 3 years while a world war is raging right outside your window. He did it because he believed this object and the dream it stood for were going to matter again someday. And the wild stories don't stop there. In 1966, right before the tournament in London, the trophy was actually stolen, gone. For 4 agonizing days, the police and just everyday citizens are frantically searching everywhere for it. And how do they finally get it back? A dog. A dog named Pickles is out sniffing around a garden in South London and just stumbles upon it, all wrapped up in newspaper under a bush. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. The survival of the biggest sporting event on Earth literally came down to a dog sniffing around some hedges. But it really goes to show you, the tournament isn't just a physical piece of gold. It's an idea, and nobody can steal an idea. Now, let's shift gears and look at how this tournament finally started opening its doors to the rest of the world. Because for a really long time, it was basically just an exclusive club for Europe and South America. But in 1966, all the African nations boycotted. Why? Because they had 0 guaranteed qualification spots. Their message was loud and clear: we're here and we won't be ignored. And you know what? It worked. By 1970, they secured their own guaranteed spots. Fast forward to 2010, the tournament is hosted in South Africa, bringing that amazing sound of the vuvuzela to everyone's living room. And then in 2022, Morocco just shatters the ceiling, becoming the first African team to reach the semifinals, sending the entire continent into absolute celebration. And that historic 2022 run gave us this incredibly powerful image. It's Morocco's star player Achraf Hakimi sprinting up into the stands to hug his mother right after scoring the winning penalty against Spain. Now, his mother had worked cleaning houses in Madrid for years just so her son could have a shot at a better life. Seeing that beautifully emotional moment, which was shared by millions online, it just perfectly captures what this whole event has become. It's a mirror, a place where literally billions of people can share in joy, tears, and this immense pride all at the exact same time. So look at this contrast right here. It is literally the ultimate realization of Jules Rimet's wild dream. We started back in 1930 with just 13 teams spending weeks on a boat to reach one single host nation. Now look ahead to 2026. We are talking about a massive 48 teams playing across 16 different host cities, shared by 3 host nations, the USA, Mexico, and Canada. This is the absolute peak of global inclusion. We're going to see nations that have literally never competed before finally stepping out onto that world stage. Which brings us to this absolutely staggering number, 6 billion. When that referee down in Mexico City blows the whistle to kick things off in 2026, roughly 6 billion people are going to be watching. Just to put that into perspective, that is more than 3/4 of all humanity. They'll be watching in living rooms, packed into bars, looking at their phones on the bus, alone, or maybe standing next to strangers who become their best friends for 90 minutes. They're going to be speaking thousands of different languages, coming from totally different cultures, but in that one moment, in perfect unison, every single one of them will understand exactly what is happening. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a question. What quiet idea, hope, or belief are you carrying right now that others can't see yet? It's been over 150 years since that freezing afternoon in Glasgow. Jules Rimet's idea survived world wars, it survived political chaos and totally impossible odds, all because he just refused to stop. Think about him crossing that ocean. Think about Ottorino Barassi checking that little shoebox under his bed every night. That quiet thing inside you, the one people might call crazy, it's not small. I want you to ask yourself, what crazy idea are you carrying today that could actually change the world? Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this